Now, I would be delighted to entertain any questions. Anybody want to start? No? I'll start. Okay. What am I doing now? Answer, flying helicopters. Why am I doing this? Well, I read that book, Father, Son, and Company. Tom Watson Jr. starts out talking about flying his helicopter over his neighbor's backyard and how he took up helicopter flying when he retired from IBM. And I thought, I could see why Wes recommended this book. That's a great idea. So, fun, technical, clears the mind. Yes, how dangerous is it? Look at helicopters. Lots safer than your laptop. Okay. And can we go for a ride? Absolutely. Next time you're in California. Anybody coming to California soon? Oh, no. What does your helicopter look like? Sorry, don't have a picture. My wife says it looks like a giant mosquito. Okay. Okay. Any further questions, or have we hit them all? Yes, sir, in the back. Gary, how you doing? Thanks for coming. I didn't hear the question. Louder, please.
What's your famous software patent?
Patents? So, a patent, the question is, what about patents? And a VC that I respect characterized patents as eye candy for investors. So, yeah, they look good. They aren't very hard to get, as it turns out. The trouble with, I mean, you might have to pay an IP attorney $50,000, but yeah, you can probably get one. The trouble with patents is that it's one thing to have a patent. It is another thing to actually assert the patent by way of claiming that somebody's infringed it and therefore should pay you money. And it is another thing, and very difficult, to defend that patent if somebody with more money for lawyers than you decides that they will challenge your patent. So the reason it's easy to get a patent is because the U.S. Patent Office seems to approve just about any patent application that's sent. A patent is merely an assertion of claim of intellectual property rights. It is not a guarantee issued by the government that you have those intellectual property rights. So I would say the following: if you have an attorney that will work pro bono, get a couple of patents. Yes, sir.
Do you think there's a trend for software to go from product-based to service-based?
Do we think there's a trend for software to go from product-based to service-based? Let me see if I understand the question. Are you talking about a trend for me to call up somebody else's server to use software rather than install it on my machine, so the world moves to ASPs?
I mean, like, software right now is passive, right? Like, you still have to type in and, like, word processing, like, we type in documents yourself, like, we do it. But service-based is, like, it's more active, like, they make recommendations.
Oh, okay. So to restate the question, software going to service-based, the example was a word processor making recommendations as you're writing a document. And yes, I believe that is a natural progression, and it's one of the things that is enabled by the increasing power of the machines. Not to sound like an old guy, but we couldn't do that kind of thing in 1975 because we were using the mainframe computer down in what's now been converted to lecture halls, right? The Red Room. And we were in awe of the 1 megabyte storage module that was about the size of 3 refrigerators. And now we get 500 megabyte storage modules for $90, and you put 2 or 3 of them in your computer. So when the performance and capacity of the machines increases like that, then what you would call advanced functionality like service-based or active advisement all of a sudden goes from the realm of science fiction to being practical.
And you think it would be an add-on as opposed to a standalone?
Add-on or standalone? I think, like a lot of features, initially add-on, and then it gets assimilated into the product. I mean, if you look at the functionality in Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel today, much of it was add-ons, say 5 or 10 years ago, like, I mean, something as simple as graphics, right, charting. And so the threshold, the bar for what is standard, constitutes a spreadsheet package, keeps increasing as time goes on, and I think that this service-based software will become assimilated in that same way. Just my opinion. Yes, sir, question here.
Yeah, don't get my question wrong. I don't disagree with anything that you've said.
Oh, good.
Given the current slowdown in the economy and the source of the dot-com bubble,
Yes.
what do you think has changed the software business, and how would you change the economy?
So the question is, there was a dot-com boom, and then the bubble burst, and how's that changed things? Right? What's going on? And I think the answer is this. The boom was fun, no question, because no matter how wacky your idea was, you could get funding. Right? You go to the VC and they go, wow, it's a great idea. And you do, just a sec, I got to give you the presentation. So the difference now, though, is that you can actually attract, retain, and motivate the excellent people, which are the core of any software business. You can't build a software business without great folks, such as graduate from the University of Waterloo. And because there aren't such a mountain of jobs out there, people who have great ideas and have funding can actually attract and retain the talent necessary to bring those ideas to fruition. Down in Silicon Valley in California 3 years ago, it was absolutely ridiculous to try and recruit a team and keep that team in place. Just about impossible. Turnover was extravagantly high. In the halls at Siebel Systems, the average tenure of an employee would be about 7 months at the height of the boom. People don't know what they're doing until they've been there for a couple of years. So anyway, I think that's important. I think the second thing that's important is that companies that have genuinely good ideas will emerge as successful more quickly because there isn't all the noise of the hype that's being generated around ideas that really shouldn't be funded. So the cream always rises to the top. I think the cream rises to the top faster in an economy like this. Question there?
MIT Technology Review predicted 10 upcoming technologies. One of them was grid computing. Do you have any thoughts on grid computing or general?
To be honest, I don't have any thoughts on grid computing. But I know that sounds like a glib answer, but what I think is really cool in computing today is the concept, or let's call it the potential of quantum computing. And I understand, I'm not terribly familiar with the work that's being done here, but I understand that we are poised to become a world leader in quantum computing. I think that is has the potential for literally revolutionizing the almost every aspect of the software business. I mean, the previously impossible melts away and becomes, let me rephrase that, things that we spent years grappling with because they were intractable problems all of a sudden become soluble. So it opens up vast new horizons of applicability for computing. So I'm quite turned on about the potential for quantum computing.
Thank you. Actually, just a follow-up on that. I don't know anything about quantum computing, but because you've been involved with the software business for so long, based on your expertise, how far away is the first quantum computer?
How far out is the first quantum computer? I'll tell you, if I knew the answer to that, I'd be signing up for a bigger helicopter. Okay? So I don't know. I think, like superconduction, as an example, there is new physics that has to be discovered prior to quantum computing becoming practical, and that the rate of progress in that is not predictable. So literally, new insights, new discoveries have to be made, and we don't know when nature will reveal them to us. Question here.
What do you think normally comes first? Product, and then the entrepreneurial, like if a person wants to start a company, the entrepreneurial spirit can lead to the product, or the product will lead to the entrepreneur?
Good question. So, question is, what comes first? Somebody with entrepreneurial spirit or somebody with a product? So do you get a product and then go, I'm kind of feeling pretty entrepreneurial now that I got a product? Or is it the other way around? And I got to say, I think it's probably one of those things that arrive at the same time. And the reason I say that is that you find that people who create cool products that turn out to be relevant, often in the process of discovering that product, discover the entrepreneur within themselves. So I think it happens at the same time. Just my perspective. Yes?
Yeah, I have a question with regards to the intellectual property. Like,
Intellectual property question, okay.
yeah, it's just like, let's say if you have like a cool idea and you want to do fundraising, but then let's say you want to go for VCs or any kind of resources. So how you're able to actually protect your idea without the risk that people are actually stealing your idea?
Yeah, this is a great question. I might need some help with this one, gentlemen. Intellectual property question. Okay, I have a great idea. Now, I want to get VC funding. I got to go tell the VCs about my idea. How do I know they won't steal it? And I don't mean it quite this glibly, but in fact, you can count on them stealing it if it's possible. And I don't really, I mean, it doesn't happen out of malevolence. What happens is you tell the VC about the great idea, and the VC is reflecting on it and goes, yeah, well, okay, and he doesn't fund you. And then he's talking to his pal. And he says, you know, I heard about an idea. I took a pass on it, didn't give them money, but here it is. And pretty soon your idea shows up someplace. So that happens, and people try to protect themselves. In fact, a friend of mine, John Treadway, for the folks in the audience who know him, sent me a proposal the other day. He wanted me to have a look at his great idea. And the proposal was only a paragraph long, not enough detail. But in the next attached document was the non-disclosure or confidentiality agreement that I was supposed to sign in order to hear the full story. Well, you have to think about that. Will the VC sign your confidentiality agreement? Big problem. If he signs your confidentiality agreement and says, you own what you're about to tell him and he won't tell anybody else, then you start with your story, and it's the same story as a company he's already funded. Oh no, he's in deep trouble. So the investors won't go for that. So it's really hard, and what you have to do, it's an interpersonal thing. You have to assess the level of good faith of the potential investor and decide how much you're going to reveal to them. If you have the means to do so, you may be able to protect your intellectual property by way of a patent before you actually start revealing it to people. Of course, you would have to find the money to do that. Sometimes patent lawyers will work for no cash, but instead a small interest in the patent. Question back there.
First of all, I think
I'm sorry, louder, please.
I think your presentation is very good. It's excellent. And I want to know, but if it's not too personal, I just want to know, how did you get into the business side of software?
Oh, yeah, how did I get into the business side of software? So the answer is, when I graduated from University of Waterloo, I began working for the Computer Systems Group, a research group headed by Wes Graham here at the university. And myself and a team of a couple of other fellows created what was then a differentiated, relevant, and beneficial and achievable product, the Waterloo Pascal compiler. And we had this great compiler. We used it in the instruction of CS240 at the time. And we sat back in our offices and we said, well, the checks should start rolling in. You know, we went to the mailroom, but the checks weren't rolling in. So the trouble was that somebody had to go tell the world about this compiler. So Wes sent me down to a couple of conferences and said, you know, what you have to do is give a presentation on what you've done to these other university information technology folks, because if they have the same problem as we have at University of Waterloo, needing this product to teach their second-year computer science course in Pascal, then they'll want to buy the compiler. And so we did that, and sure enough, it worked. And that introduced me to the business side. In other words, what you have to do to take a great product idea and transform it into a business. And of course, that was, you know, just getting one's toe wet in marketing. And then I was fortunate in 1988 to get invited to come down to University of Waterloo spin-off Watcom Corporation, and Wes is the chairman of that company. Ian was the president, and for reasons that are not completely clear to me, however, worked out fortuitously, they asked me if I would be interested in running sales and marketing at Whatcom, which was a big leap of faith on their part since I was a software developer. I didn't know anything about sales and marketing, but we all learned together. Okay, how are we doing on time, Shirley?
One more question.
One more question. Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering how plausible is it for a company with a product to make sufficient profit on like customization and product support so they can actually give away their software for free?
The question is it feasible, do we think, for a company to make sufficient profit on services, on customization and support, in order to give the software away for free? And I think that it is very feasible, but I'm going to say that I think it's maybe the wrong choice. And here's why. Remember we said the software business is cool because it's easy to manufacture a lot of pieces of software very quickly if necessary. Right? And so the business can scale and the costs don't scale along with them, so you make a lot of money and the business grows like crazy. The services side of the software business doesn't have those properties. In order to grow the services side, you've got to hire people, and that presents some problems. So consequently, investors value software revenues at a pretty significantly higher level than services revenues. So if your company represented itself as having 100% services revenues, you might get that only one smiley face 25 times, or maybe even closer to the 10 times software, revenue multiple in terms of valuation of your company. Whereas if you said, truth is, it's about 50% license revenues, 50% services revenues, and that accurately reflected the way it was, you would find that your company was perceived as being worth more. So I think it's possible, but you might want to think about whether it's optimal. And that was the last question, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. It's been an honor.